research at our fingertips, we can start putting together some of these pieces of the puzzle.
Welcome, everyone, to We Are Not Alone, streaming here on Queen City News Plus. I'm your host, May K. Beeler. Also, the chief transportation correspondent at Queen City News, a pilot of over 40 years and counting, love aviation, love all things flying, including the wild blue yonder and what's beyond it. So that's what brings us to this special program talking about everything, events of high strangeness, UAPs, UFOs, aliens, paranormal, you name it, we talk about it. And we have a very special guest today coming to us from Colorado. Paige joins us today. Katie, before I bring you in, I just want to brag about you a little bit. Katie has personal ties to the Rocky Mountain Ranch in Colorado, formerly known as the Clearview Ranch. This predates Skinwalker Ranch by over a decade, and her connection there has sparked her interest in ufology. She serves as the CEO of the Rocky Mountain Ranch Research. She's a co-host of UAP Studies podcast, a research investigator and author. She's made appearances on lots of television shows, including History Channel's Beyond Skinwalker, The Unexplained, Travel Channel's UFO Witness. The list goes on and on. She's been in Ron James' Accidental Truth. Now, she does independent investigations and research through her Rocky Mountain Ranch Research Foundation. She's the author of Letters of Love and Light, 4 Decades of UFO Encounters, Experiences, and Sightings. And she's co-authored Snippy the Horse, A King Family Legacy. We'll learn about that. She's working on her 3rd book. Can't wait to hear about it. So quite a storied resume. We're going to bring you in now and welcome you, Katie Paige. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure being here.
So much to talk about. I'm so curious. How did all of this start for you? How did you get interested in this paranormal UFO universe?
Right. Like so many of us that experience just things that fall outside, our normal everyday experience of life. It goes back. I'm just going to do the little compartmentalized little version. But in 1970, we moved to Colorado. In 73, my parents divorced, and my mom soon started dating a gentleman that owned a ranch out in Elbert County, Colorado. And a lot of strange things were going on there. This is the location in 1975, 76, 77, where Linda Moulton Howe got her start as an investigative journalist out there. There were just rashes of cattle mutilations, or should I say animal mutilations, and we'll get to Snippy here in a little bit. But there were horse and cow and even dog, and so the mutilations were going on. But at the same time, we were experiencing, strange hum sounds, very much like the Taos hum, strange weird boxes, craft sightings, orb sightings, strange blacked out helicopters. So we were threatened and warned never to talk about what happened out there. And I never knew anybody knew anything about it or that it was ever investigated. So as many of us do, we, go through high school, go through college, start raising our families. And all those questions were kind of back there, like, what was all that about? And I just started, reading books and documentaries and that, and I learned about MUFON, the Mutual UFO Network. I ended up being the state director for Colorado. And it wasn't until I bought this book right here, Hunt for the Skinwalker, by Colm Kelly, or her PhD, and George Knapp, and I started reading the chapter Other Hotspots and started reading about the ranch of my childhood. And that is, of course, where I learned that, not only for the first time did I learn that it was investigated, but that it was investigated by 3 PhDs, Dr. Leo Sprinkle, PhD, and that's how the book Letters of Love and Light came along. Spent 3 years going through his archives, and then 2 other PhDs. So it's just been now almost 15 years of doing a deep dive on these high strangeness locations. And really, I wanted to ask the question, how much of this was Black access military projects and secret military projects, and how much of it was unexplained phenomena? And I've just sort of been going ever since.
So as a young person living on this ranch that is a hot spot, did it affect your health in any way? Did you feel creepy or scared or dizzy? Sometimes people say, did you feel like you were in a different dimension? Did you see ghosts or apparitions? What was it like?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because, my sister's 6 years older, so she was in her, you know, 15, 16, 17 years old. But for me, I'm 9, 10, 11 years old, a young girl, and I didn't realize not everybody was having these strange experiences. I kind of thought it was normal. So, I compartmentalized these different events that were occurring like so many do. Like I did have shadow figures in the room. The house I lived in, I thought was very much haunted. We'd hear the footsteps and just things like that. But I didn't really necessarily connect it to the ranch at the time. Now, all these years later, learning about the hitchhiker phenomenon and this kind of, I'm like, oh, maybe it was connected there. Because one thing I want your listeners to know, I did not live on this ranch property full time. Um, my mother dated the man who owned the ranch, and him and his two younger sons lived with us during the week, about 45 minutes away from the ranch. But we would travel back and forth on the weekends and spend time there on the weekends. And I feel like that is a blessing because I know the boys that live there full time moved out of the state. They're terrified still to this day. And I think it's because I only had a handful of experiences that I was able to really do a deep dive and not be so, like PTSD over what happened out there. So,
We're going to get into what happened out there in just a minute. Did you feel like a bad energy? Did it
for
feel
sure. Yeah,
so
yeah.
bad energy? Do I dare ask? Did you think it was like evil?
Not necessarily evil, but definitely a sense of being watched. That was a feeling I had for many, many years. And when I went back for History Channel's Beyond Skinwalker, visiting the ranch after all these decades for the first time, that was one of the things I really wanted to see. Would I still feel that sense of that heaviness, of that being watched, that eerie kind of thing? And, not it's not as bad as it was back then, but then again, I'm a little girl, so I think, I've grown up and I don't let those things affect me as much as I did back then, but still pretty creepy area.
So let's talk about the things that happened there.
Yeah,
So
one of the very first things reported out there was the strange hum sounds and bangs underground. There were even Sasquatch creatures reported out there. And, at the time, my mom called them white fuzzies. They were like gray haired. Of course, the orbs and craft, the animal mutilations, the unmarked helicopters. My sister and I, one of the things we both experienced, it was, a weekend we were there flipping the frisbee in front of the ranch house. And we looked down. It was a spring Colorado day where we have this wet, heavy snow. But we looked down and there was just dry dirt in this perfectly round circle. And come to find out, I ended up getting the original briefing document from the original investigation, and which was amazing to me because it really was like, oh my gosh, somebody actually measured that circle and it was reported and documented. And I'm a documents person. I love documents, but it was 75 feet in diameter. And was really interested in some of these documents. There were actually drops of blood in the snow when the investigators were out there, investigating what was going on out there. So many different things, strange, mysterious boxes, which I didn't talk about for a long time. And we can get into that a little bit.
yeah, so this obviously was like a saucer that was on the ground in the snow that had blood leading to it. We're
Could have
talking
been.
a
Could have
UAP
been.
or a flying saucer type thing.
I don't know. Could have been. I'm more of a skeptic than many people believe, but I mean that's certainly a theory that there could be something. However, when Beyond Skinwalker is out there and they're doing the ground penetrating radar, they call it the landing site. This is where the dog won't even one of the current ranch owners' dogs won't go to this location. The only place on the ranch the dog won't go. And then when they did the ground penetrating radar, at a certain depth below the ground, it just completely blacks out. So could there be something buried underground? I'm not sure. And maybe that has something to do with some of the hums and bangs and sounds that um, we were never able to determine where those sounds were coming from. So perhaps there's something under the ground. I don't know.
Wow, Katie, fascinating. We're going to take a quick break. So much to talk about. We'll be back right after this. Welcome, everyone, to We're Not Alone. We're talking to Katie Paige today about the high strangeness of the ranch she grew up in or spent time in Colorado. Katie, do you think like the fuzzy Bigfoots and the sightings of creatures like that, do you think they're from another dimension?
That would be my best hypothesis, only because in this area of Elbert County, Colorado, it's rural and, obviously in the 70s it was much more so than today, but still it's pretty rural. So a lot of cattle ranches and things like that. But as far as like the wooded areas, there's only little like groves of ponderosa pine. So I would think that if there was a Sasquatch creature living there that wasn't somehow going underground or able to go into another dimension, if you want to say, we would have evidence of that, the elusive Bigfoot. And that's a topic. The cryptid sightings are something I didn't touch for a long time because it's just so, whoa. But just like with UFOs, there's just thousands and thousands of people that have encounters with these things. So you can't dismiss it altogether.
Right. Um, Cattle mutilations.
Yeah.
What can you, just sounds so creepy. What can you tell us about those?
Right. So one of hence Snippy the horse here, one of the first, before viral was viral, Snippy the horse was an animal mutilation death that occurred in the San Luis Valley of Colorado. Very high strangeness there. And this is the wonderful thing about reopening the Snippy the horse case, which happened in 1967. So yes, a long time ago, but one of my big messages out there is, number one, it's really important to learn our UFO history. And number two, there's always new things to learn. So, the King family, Nellie King had this horse named Snippy, and Snippy was found mutilated, kind of the first viral worldwide mutilation in the world. So this made front page news everywhere, and it was quite a big deal. But APRO, which is the Aerial Phenomenon Research Organization, originally investigated this case along with the Condon Committee and Dr. Leo Sprinkle out of APRO, which is another connection to Dr. Sprinkle. So the King family, who Kerry King, the great nephew of Nellie King, who owned the horse, got a hold of me like 3 years back. And there was confusion about the horse's name, whether Snippy was a male 3-year-old gelding or a lady, which in the 80s was reported that it was lady. But it is Snippy, a 3-year-old gelding. And what happened was the National UFO Historical Record Center out there in Rio Rancho, New Mexico, gained access to the APRO files after 37 years. And so we reinvestigated, Tony Angiola and I reinvestigated the Snippy the horse case. And where I thought I was just going to learn more about animal mutilations, it turns out there's much more to this case than I ever even knew, including strange hum sounds in the San Luis Valley, strange boxes, many animal mutilations, including the neighbors of the King family was Ernest Wellington, and his ranch was called the Dead Cow Ranch because he had so many mysterious animal mutilation, animals being blinded, radioactive.
Oh my gosh.
Holes in the ground, on and on and on. And what's really cool about this new book, Snippy the Horse, there is lost to time for over 37 years are just pictures of the original documents of the horses, trails and crime scene map and all sorts of evidence. It's just been an amazing case to reinvestigate.
So, Katie, I'm really ignorant about this. Why? What is the point behind these mutilations? Who's behind it? Why do they do it? What's the point?
Again, that's something, I mean, this has been going on now for 55 plus years, and we still have just as many questions as we have back then. Is this our military testing, the soil and the water from, fallout or, missile sites or whatever? We know that, we're in an area here in Colorado where there's a lot of military activity. However, there's so many, just like Tom and Sally Miller out in Trinidad, who's also suffered a lot of mutilations. We find these animals in very weird, strange circumstances, as if, dropped from above in trees. The blood is drained, cauterized, perfect incisions. animals and predators won't go near these animals, including Snippy. You could see where the coyotes were kind of circling around Snippy, but would not approach the animal. So many tall tale signs of an actual mutilation, which, Linda Moulton Howe has been on the front lines of this for so many years. Christopher O'Brien did a lot of work in the San Luis Valley as well, and we recently just lost him. But it's still a mystery, and I know there's been theories throughout the years. One is maybe they're taking the blood because it has high levels of copper in the blood if it is extraterrestrial in nature. And maybe it's a combination of both. Maybe some of it is us and some of it is something unexplained.
Regarding military, what were the boxes you were talking about? You said there were black helicopters, which obviously would be military. Black boxes are these UAPs, extraterrestrial, military. What are those?
Yeah, this is an interesting, I don't think people have really done a deep dive on these boxes, but they're turning up in different locations, even around the world. In the UK, even, we're having reports of these strange boxes. And what's fascinating about it is they're described as being different dimensions, and some of them have lights illuminated. Some of them will make a strange sounds. The one I encountered made like a bee sound or a hum, almost an electronic kind of sound. But the Meadows Project down south, which is Trey Hudson, they actually caught a large kind of box-shaped thing on a FLIR camera where things would, almost like people would disappear when they went into the camera and then reappear when they came out of it. So what are these boxes? I don't know. There's a really famous case called the Carl Higdon case out of Medicine Bow, Wyoming, and it involved elk hunting, but he also had an encounter with a large box and had photographic evidence of the shape of the box on the ground from that encounter. So, this is an area of study that I want to get more into and really start comparing what these different boxes are. And, there's such a mysterious thing because obviously, even through the latest hearings on UAP, they talk about a spherical bubble with a box-shaped cube inside of it. So what are these boxes? Because they're certainly not aerodynamic in nature.
So
I don't know what their purpose is.
do they come from the sky, or do you just find them in the woods?
Yeah, both have been reported in the sky, and they've been reported on the ground in other places. So it's a really big mystery. I don't know if these are back engineered or if it's something our military has been messing with as far as frequency and sound goes, because some of them emit these strange sounds. So
when you saw one, were you able to walk up to it, or was it in the sky?
no, it was a daytime sighting. It was me and the youngest son and my mom's boyfriend. We were in the pickup truck. We went and got a tool out of the shed, and then we decided to drive the truck around the Ponderosa Pines behind the back of the ranch house. And I'm not even sure why he pulled the truck over, but we heard the sound of it. It was like a bee or a hum, like a electronic noise. And I just remember Jack going, it's the box, get in the truck, get in the truck. And me and the youngest son jump in the back of the truck, and I turned back around and the thing was gone. So, and that was during the day. I have no idea what it was, why it was there, but it was pretty frightening. And I know my mother's boyfriend, who has now passed away, so I'm okay saying his name, but he was really freaked out by this encounter.
A lot of this stuff sounds so scary. Did you ever just get scared? And what you're doing today, talking about it and researching it, aren't you scared?
No, I'm not so much scared. I'm curious and I want answers. One thing that I would love to talk about if we have a moment are these two A7Ds that crashed out in Laramie is the Heritage Center where Dr. Leo Sprinkle has his archives. And in that archives, they talked about two A7D interceptors that were in pursuit of a UFO on November 11th, 1975.
Hey, okay, hold that thought. I want to hear all about it. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be back with Katie Paige right after this. Okay, we're back here on We're Not Alone with Katie Paige. Katie, tell us. This is fascinating. What evidence do you have and what happened?
Yeah, so interestingly enough, I sent a FOIA to learn about this mysterious A7D interceptor crash, and I got this big report back, of course, in good old common, a lot of it's blacked out. Like, but what I did learn, both pilots ejected, both pilots survived, but one of the pilots, the instructor, lost his instrumentation lights. It was loaded with 218 live rounds of ammunition, but it's really fascinating. On that same day, out of Ontario, Canada, Selfridge, Michigan, they deployed two F-106 Delta Darts in pursuit of unknown UAPs on radar. So we have 4 interceptors being scrambled on November 11th, 1975. And that happens to be the morning right after midnight that Travis Walton was returned from his abduction experience. And it also happens to be the day that Edmund Fitzgerald went down on the Great Lakes. So much was happening on that day. And I think my point here is, it's fun to kind of go back in time and re-examine these cases and make these connections. Now that we have the internet and kind of research at our fingertips, we can start putting together some of these pieces of the puzzle.
Wow. Katie, do you think there are aliens, be them extraterrestrials or terrestrials that live in the earth or in the ocean? Do you think there are ETs living among us today?
I believe that it's a very real possibility, and there's just so many really good historical cases and sightings by so many very credible people, many, many pilots and police officers and military men and women and civilians, that it's just hard to write it off altogether now, whether they are coming here from light years away, or if they've just always been here and remain underground somewhere. That's certainly a question.
Do you have something uplifting that you can tell us? Because the cattle mutilations, that's just beyond creepy. That you can tell us letters of love and light, 4 decades of UFO encounters. Share a little bit of that with us, something to uplift us before we let you go.
Yeah, for sure. I would like to say that even though some of these high strangeness events seem kind of dark and scary and creepy, and certainly that was the case when I was younger, but so many people that have these encounters, even with the Phoenix lights and things like that, ultimately it turns into such a like a love and light experience where you feel very protected and guided and inspired. So, all in all, it's turned itself around to be a very good positive thing in my life.
Where can people get in touch with you? Tell us
Yeah,
about your new book.
Well, this has been a long time coming, is the Rocky Mountain Ranch book about all the experiences on the ranch of my childhood. So that hopefully will be out in the next 6 months, but you can find me right now at katiepaige.net and RockyMountainRanchResearch.org, as well as my YouTube channel, Rocky Mountain Ranch Research with Katie Paige on YouTube. And of course, you can find the Snippy book and the Love and Light book on Amazon.
So as we close out, what do you want people to know? What
I want
should
people
people
to
know?
know. Yeah, I would like people to know that, to do your due diligence, research things that interest you. And I love the fact that we can go back historically now and pull records and pull files and send FOIA requests and really start answering some of these questions that we've had for decades now, and really to take a second look at these historical cases. And history is important.
Katie, do you think we should be afraid or concerned?
I don't think so. I mean, I know, the old saying goes, if they wanted to do something, they would have done it a long time ago, and they have not. Even with the animal mutilations, as scary as they sound, you know, we're okay, and we'll be okay. Yeah.
Do you ever go back to that ranch?
Yeah, I do. I do for the Beyond Skinwalker, but I always have people around me. I'm not so sure I'd want to go out there alone.
Okay. Well, we're going to wrap it up. Fascinating conversation. We know where to find you. We look forward to your new book. Katie Paige, ufologist, author, researcher, coming to us from Colorado. Thank you so much for joining us. Please be safe. Don't go back to that ranch. Please be safe.
Thanks.
Okay. For We're Not Alone, I'm May K. Bueller at Queen City News Plus. Thank you so much for joining us, and we will see you next time.
Queen City News Plus. Just search Queen City News on your smart TV's app store.